Next item is capital projects, I believe.
This is a report on page 17 of your packet that we deferred at last month's meeting when we went way over time. This is a report that we are producing or attempting to produce quarterly to present to you. So we're a little bit behind in talking about this, but we have updated it in your packet through June.
The majority is through June, yes.
The majority of the projects, there's a sheet that gives the status report on every project, and then and most of those are updated with their detailed status through the month of June. There's a cover page found on page 18 that I thought we could have some discussion with, and Mr. Johnson can chime in on this. What you see there is a list of every active capital project the PSTA is pursuing. It totals $62 million. Many of these projects were approved in prior to the current year capital budget. So the current PSTA adopted capital budget is around $30 million for the fiscal year 2013. So that $30 million is in here, plus then $30 million from either fiscal year 12 or 11 or 10, like the concrete project, the first one. You can see on here, this is what we are tracking regularly, and Mr. Johnson suggested that this committee maybe have a discussion about other ways, other performance metrics that we might be able to use, easily collect, and track PSTA's overall performance on administering and implementing capital projects. The one method we are using now is fairly crude, but it's the second column called percent complete. That percent complete is the percent of expenditure, percent of the budget or the contractual expenditures on each of those projects. So what we internally, what the PSTA staff has been doing with these projects has been having a now monthly meeting, internal meeting, and going over this list, and especially highlighting projects that have zeros in the list. These are all existing capital projects. We are 9 months into the current fiscal year. If a project has a zero in it, meaning that we haven't expended any funds on it yet, perhaps there's no need. Maybe the project is not actually active. Perhaps there's excess funds in there that can be reallocated. Maybe there's a problem where it's fallen through the cracks. Maybe there's a contractual problem. And we try to dive down into the details of what is causing delay or in these projects. All of these projects have been approved by the PSTA board in as part of your CIP, and then when individual contracts come up or whatever, then you see them again to approve them. So just to finish, Mr. Johnson suggested that the committee could have a discussion about that column or about other ways that we might measure ourselves and our performance in administering these projects.
That is correct to that point. Just a couple of clarifications, if I may. The 62 million, is that segregated in capital projects?
Yes.
So it's not in our, those are not the expense amounts that we'll see in the project, in the revenue and expenses coming up. They're correct. And so it's not, the 62 million is the total budget, so a good bit of that, for instance, on the replacement vehicles, may have been spent, because it says that's 74% complete on the replacement vehicles. So just kind of clarify that. It's
Oh yeah, well that's the biggest, 25 million is in the replacement vehicles.
right.
Does that include the figure with the action item we just took?
No, because those are non-revenue vehicles. Cars are revenue
Support-
buses.
Support purchase support vehicles is
Gotcha.
down to 2 items from there. The other observation I would make is that some of these items, for instance, employee education and training, that is probably money that has been set aside for scheduled education and training throughout the year, and is not really a project that requires
Correct.
project design, project planning, project implementation, project control, project reporting. But something like the concrete drive is a typical project that is something that you don't do on an ongoing basis. It has a recognized start and it has a recognized finish, or it should. I'm sorry, I don't know why that's being so much. It has a recognized finish. So in those projects that have the recognized start and the recognized finish, the question is there interest on the part of the board to periodically monitor that effort? And I'm going to turn this off so it doesn't keep talking to us. And I brought along a copy of an extract from project management book. And this is from the chapter on communications management. I don't have enough copies. I think everybody on the board members should have a
Yeah.
copy. It's from the chapter on project communications management, so it's not the actual person doing the project management, but there are performance reports, and on that page 124 talks about how you could use earned value reporting to look at where a project is. And this is based on the assumption that you have a project schedule. It could be an outsourced project, it could be something that you're doing yourself. And for instance, in the little graph at the top, you are at a point in the middle of the project where you plan to spend the dark line. You may have actually incurred more costs than what you planned at that point in time. And the earned value is indicative of you completed tasks that you plan to do, but you've completed them to date. So you're, in this indication, because the earned value is less than the planned value, you are behind schedule, if you will, on your completion of tasks that you had originally indicated. So this is one method of project communication that is used in some organizations. It may be more information than a board like this would want to indicate. It may be something that this committee might want to apply to some of the projects. And discuss, so that's open for discussion and question.
Well, I think that this is right for what you might call management by exception. So that, and that's what these lines basically show, so that what we would perhaps ask for the people who are managing the project is where they expect to be. And then our concern would be when there's a deviation from the expectations. Otherwise, they can just assure us that everything's on schedule. And that would be that would be the way it would come to our attention. And then we decide if there's anything we can do or not. But I think it would be all in the planning of the project, so we know where we want to be at what point.
I'm in line with what you're thinking on that. It's kind of, sort of like the sheet we have, you know, I mean, it's just an update where we're at here, our major projects, where we're at in it, what deviations might be expected.
Yeah, because that's.
We might, I don't want to micromanage the operation, but I think a update, sort of status update is good.
An indication if we're over budget or under budget.
Right, we're going fine, but maybe, yeah.
Well, yeah, so it's just, but if we know where we're supposed to be, and then any deviation from that is something that should come to us.
Right, an expectation that we might go over, so that we can do, I mean, earlier we know that's a better plan we can do down the road and dealing with it, you know. I think that's good. My question would be, can you define capital on this list? Because in my mind, capital is bricks and mortar.
Right.
And I'm seeing messaging and branding, that's not capital. Community bus plan, that's not capital. Planning, that's not capital. These are different.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when I think, and if your definition and how it operates here is this, then that's fine. I just have to adjust my thinking. But my thinking in capital is bricks and mortar. For example, like a public awareness campaign on CARES. That to me isn't a capital project. That's just a public awareness project.
We
Am
use
I-
a very strictly defined federal definition of capital,
Okay, so that is.
which includes a lot of what you and I would think of as operating.
Okay.
Planning is capital.
So it's an
Training is capital.
It's a dollar expense as opposed to a project expense. You know what I mean? Capital in dollars expense as opposed to bricks and mortar.
On a
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but yes.
When I
It
think
includes bricks and
capital,
mortar plus
pipes,
other
roads,
stuff.
like to me, the concrete replacement program, that's a capital project.
On a balance sheet, it would be carried as goodwill.
Goodwill.
Am I right?
That's cool, I just want to understand, though, if that's the method you're going to use, and I know that. Because when we go over
Yeah.
into, for example, the counties, when we talk about our Penny for Pinellas one, that's our capital project. Well, that's all bricks and mortar, that's my mindset, so I'm trying to just put that in place. And we have a
Right.
different approach there.
You might also use your general fund, in the general fund budget, Clearwater does this, that we allocate some money for capital improvements to our park system that doesn't come out, it comes out of the general fund rather than coming out of the Penny for Pinellas fund.
Right.
And that was kind of what I was getting at when we're starting here and describing what is a project. That a project is not running the bus system every day and getting the buses on the road. That's ongoing. But you may have implementation for instance, the Wi-Fi system on those buses, which is a project in that you want to set aside funding so that you'll have the resources to complete that, and also that you are tracking that it has a beginning and it has an end. And some of the education program, for instance, you have $30,000 on here. That actually is more of a budget allocation because it's not $30,000 for training them on one particular aspect of maintenance on a bus.
Right.
It would be multiple projects. And I wouldn't think that we would be too interested in hearing about those multiple projects, but we might on, for instance, Wi-Fi.
Well, your point is noted. The reason that I think there is some perhaps benefit to showing on here is while those training, actually I don't even see on here, but training or
Second
Project
from the bottom.
36.
Second from the bottom.
employee education training. Okay, that is That actually is a capital, it's in our capital plan because it qualifies under the federal definition of capital, that you can build training.
Okay, it goes back.
But it's also in our operating budget. It's an expense on the expense side, and then this is the revenue, this revenue transfer from our capital program into our operating to pay for it. So it's, to that point, it's double counted. It's in the $60 million operating, and then it's a revenue that comes out of our capital program because it comes out of our federal grants to pay for it. The reason that I would suggest keeping it on here is when you look at, well, that line has expenditure 37%. Well, we're 75% through the fiscal year, so, and we've only spent 37% of that funding. There are some cases where we apply for the federal grant in the year prior to expenditure, so we to make sure that we have it, like that's the way I think most of our preventative maintenance works. It's in the year prior and then we expend it. But if there's capital dollars sitting around, or if it's a zero item, no expenditures on an ongoing thing, then maybe that money needs to be reallocated.
Well, in our capital improvement budget, the big, huge printout thing, what we, at one point, I think, tried to do was coordinate the capital projects with the federal grants, so, and color code them and all that sort of thing. So that when we have something like this, we want to account for all of the items that are coming out of federal grants. So if it's something that is coming from a federal grant and it's called a capital project, probably should have it in there as just a part of it rather than just ignoring it.
Yeah.
Brad, can I point? These projects that you are seeing here are based off the CIP.
Yeah.
The CIP is updated first with the current invoices paid to whatever information I have. And then I take that information and I put all the information into here.
Yeah.
So it is based off of, they work together, they're connected.
And I think another thing is no two projects are alike. I mean, it's not like when Mike's doing budgeting for staff, every month it's coming out. Shops at Park Place, maybe 0, 0, 0, 0, then it's billed and all the money spent. So I think maybe somewhere you need to be apprised of the kind of project it is, so you're not expecting to see movement every month, because it's a cumulative thing, and all of a sudden, boom, we spend it on one purchase. So that's why sometimes there's zeros on those kinds of projects.
Right, well, I'm going to use Shops at Park Place as an example. There's been a lot of staff time used towards that. That is not shown in here, because that part's not on the CIP.
So we may be 30% progress, but 0% expenditure.
This is for the construction, for the equipment, for, you know.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at when I summed up the management by exception. So
Exactly.
we know it's on track.
Exactly. So we've talked in our grant meetings about maybe, it's up to Brad, about showing maybe how far the project is along. Because if you're just looking at expenditure and you see zeros, you think nothing's happening. But we may be 50% of the project in terms of time and progress. And that's important for you to know, because we don't want you thinking nothing's happening.
There's not a percentage in there, but that's where it comes to status information. Because every time I update this with the financials, before it comes to you, I always send it out to the project managers and ask them to update the status of it, any changes in description, and any comments. So that's, that's where the status will tell you if it's on target. That's where they'll list anything that might be, out of whack, or any information that needs to be said about it.
So that's in the actual pages that we have.
Yes. Yeah, if you look at the individual pages, there's a description of each project.
Yeah.
There's the funding sources that are being shown for the total, then project status, impact on operating budget, and then any additional comments.
So then maybe we can have another column in the summary thing.
For,
On target, or status on target or something. Or
Yeah,
ahead,
I mean-
behind, or whatever.
yeah, we can discuss it in adding that on.
The percent complete that shows here is the spending. Is that versus the
I'm sorry.
The column here that says percent complete
Correct.
is based on spending versus based on,
That's for invoices that have been currently paid.
So
Versus
that's-
actual progress of the project.
Right.
Not necessarily POs.
No.
I mean, not obligations.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Obligations of, the board might have approved the entire concrete
Right.
contract, but just the amount that we've actually paid.
Yeah, what Phil was saying is that it reflects how much has been spent, not what you're talking about is, are we really where we
How much
should
is
be?
it done?
Yeah.
Right, and again, on the individual pages, it shows you what approved contracts or POs have been open towards the contract. But like I said, the percentage is based off of how much have we paid. You know, and on some of these, like, it could be with messaging and Brainy, we could have spent all of the money yet, but it might not show 100% of that 300,000 spent as of June because we haven't received all the invoices, or the invoices weren't paid completely as of June. So that's, you know, that's where the difference is coming in. The project may be done, but we may be waiting on invoices. Real time fell into that. You know, we finished real time earlier in the year, but the final invoices weren't paid until April because they were waiting on information. So in here now it shows 100%, but back earlier in the year it still showed, even though the project was complete, it still showed didn't show 100% because of the outstanding invoices.
Yeah, the point is that the percentage numbers of, the financial numbers don't tell the whole story. That's what we're looking for.
I think if you're showing progress, it reinforces to you and Brad that things are moving forward the way you would like it. The dollar figures maybe are incidental to that, but as Brad said earlier, the dollar figures are still critical because if we notice that nothing's been spent and nothing's been progressed, then maybe that's a project we roll over or we reinstitute another project. It tells us what's happening. But I think what you want to know is the actual progress.
Yeah, that it's on
Yeah.
target.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
That would be the other column.
yeah.
And I think that's why, that's kind of, you may have paid out 70% of the money, you're only 30% complete on the
Yeah, well, the
project.
reverse is true.
But that's just the way it lays. You know, it's not that they're not necessarily
Yeah,
two
the reverse is true.
indicative of each other. I like this sort of thing, you know, nice brief, so forth, and perhaps a living sort of folder or document on capital budget projects that can be updated with a summary sheet that adds that into the column, might be the solution for updates.
And that would be the,
And this would be the detailed, right, summary led by sort of an executive summary, if you will. Here's where we are, here's where we stand every couple of months or whatever. Project updates, and then here are the details.
yeah, I think we have built this into our schedule that every 3 months we would look at capital projects. So is there a sense as to what, are we happy with what we have, or do we want to add something to either the summary page or the detail page?
yeah, I think if we could explore some sort of a column that would indicate whether or not we're on progress.
You're talking on the front sheet
Yeah,
here. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
yeah, then we can immediately see it. If
Yeah.
There's a problem somewhere. And then the follow, or the detail pieces could show us what it is.
If you see one that's not, you go to that project,
Yeah.
and then we have the comments that say, waiting for a
Yeah.
public hearing date by FDOT before we can proceed. You know, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Are there any projects here that you'd like to dive into a little bit?
How did we ever get saddled with the Howard Franklin study? That, I should think the MPO would have had to do that. I don't,
I think you might know the backstory of that more than I do.
do you remember?
And now I'll share what I think I know about it. The alternative analysis, the scope of the alternative analysis was wanted to make sure that we could eventually get across the bridge to Tampa. And as part of the, let's not have, do our thing independently of Hillsborough County. And because the bridge was such a key component of a regional system, it was determined that it should be addressed concurrently with our local system. And then the DOT said they had plans to do the evaluation and design targeting completion in 2025, but they didn't have money to do it up front. And so I believe that PSTA actually said, we'll advance money to FDOT to fund that study. And at the same time, DOT was funding our AA study. So, so we advanced the money, and I think we're to get some of that back at some point in time. So because we were funding it, we wanted to manage that. Plus, it was real key to our alternative analysis. And so it was, from a big picture, it's part of our.
I would say that answer was 58% correct.
It almost made sense when the, not your answer made perfect sense. The theory they were trying to do, which was Hillsborough was working on its rail, and I was just thinking about it, there's got to be a connective thing. That's the Franklin Bridge, because it's due for that one span replacement, so it made logical sense to leave it in there.
So the DOT, the financing it? Over funding it?
We fronted the money. I'm not sure exactly where that money came from. Did that come from our reserves?
Yes.
Yeah, I can explain to you what happened. It's okay. What had happened at the time was the Howard Franklin Bridge replacement study was a program for like 2016. At the time, we were looking at a referendum opportunity. As you said, HARD was looking at their AA. So the discussion was, if we front money, they'll move the Howard Franklin Bridge PD&E forward. So basically, the money we fronted was, we had a grant and appropriations from the Fed, so we used $1.5 million for that, and then actually $1 million of the grant, $1 million from the grant, $500,000 from reserves, and then $500,000 from the MPO. What they did in turn was they paid for our AA. So we would have used that $2 million for our AA, and they would have used their own program money for their bridge study. We just swapped it. As it turns out, I think it could be said, the AA costs a lot more than the $2 million. So I think we came out like bandits in the whole process.
Yeah.
But that was the scheme. Everybody agreed to it. It worked wonderfully. But yes, the Howard Franklin just seems to kind of be moving on because of all, I could speak to it, all these other requests that are coming forward about including an envelope for transit and making sure we can match with whatever Hillsborough does, and that's a separate discussion.
Yeah, I don't want to add details that will just confuse, so I'll let you guys ask any other questions.
No, that's it, that's exactly,
That was
and actually
just-
makes sense. It's kind of like, why pave the road and then tear it up 6 months, put a pipe under it?
Yes.
You know, because we're planning, well, why not put the pipe now, front the money, get it done while we're paving the road, you know, it makes sense.
Although the Florida DOT certainly knows, or has that same sentiment that John just described, that we came out like bandits. So whenever we complain now that the Howard Franklin Bridge study is not going our way, they are like, it's been
Well,
a challenge.
And I would say that road projects that undergo at this level of project development are done much differently than transit projects, and that is a national difference of how those projects are conducted. So they're learning how we do things.
So,
But in that vein, you know, I want to express my appreciation to you as committee members for diving into this capital project stuff. And I think this helps PSTA is to be more sophisticated in this. This is new, but Pam's been doing a great job in putting this together and tracking this as a holistic capital program. I don't know if what your opinions are about the county or your city, way they do this, but I know other transit systems, some other transit systems that are very sophisticated in their project management, tracking, and they, some of them even present that in summary ways to the public. We put this on our website, but if there, it would be other ways to describe that PSTA is meticulous in how it approaches its capital funds, but simplifying it in a way that people can understand, okay, yes, just generally, are you on track or are you behind? Are you wasting the money or are you spending the money for effective projects, whatever?
Well, I think, we're in a new normal with economics in this country, and I think that's good. I applaud staff and you for this, so from my perspective, I think that's important. And the more information that we have available to not only board members but the public, the better understanding comes from it, and that's a good thing. And more people are focused in on, how you spend my money, where's it going. I want a level of confidence. So the more information that we put out there, I think is always good. I would, from my perspective, and I'll just give you mine, I like this detailed sheet, but I like a summary concept that says here's where it is with the front page, and then if I feel a need for detail, I can go further in it and ask questions about it. I like the addition of another column of saying this is where we are, this is what we spent, this is our percentage in spending the money, here's our percentage in completion. And if you want to add something like an asterisk that if one means we're ahead of schedule, two means we're behind, no means we're online, if you want to come up with that, and then you go into the detail and find out why, that's good. The only thing I would recommend, and you can take it or not, is for me, again, because of the way our government operates, capital to me is bricks and mortar. So if we could have the capital and then associated capital or something like that, that separates out the planning and the, you know what I mean? And you've got those hardcore capital bricks and mortar projects, which most people see as capital projects in their mind. And then on that same list, maybe a separate little header that says associated capital or something like that, where your plannings and your what have you could be. That would make, I think, it easier for even the general public, because I would guess that the general public sees capital the same way.
And through the chair, if I could puff our CEO, he really structured this and enforced this, and I think this is a good precursor to something like a referendum, because this is the kind of delivery plan that we're going to have to do to show the public is how we're proceeding, how we're moving
Well,
forward.
yeah,
Good practice.
I would say that's construction and pre-construction.
Yeah, there's a hands-on with a hammer, and there's the hammer and pen. One's a hammer, one's a pen,
Just one, the other's not a sickle.
That's all it's us. Unless it's a motorcycle, we're making that connection again, we'll go back to Miller Lite, I know that. This is gonna sound.
Bang, bang, bang.
I'm going to get you.
Okay. So I'm personally very pleased that we had this discussion, talked about it, and for the same reason that John just mentioned, that as we move forward, if we are given the opportunity to implement an expanded system, we will have to manage that, and our citizens will want us to demonstrate that we have the capability of managing that. This fits right in with it, so I'm pleased. Is there any other project that you wanted to ask about on the detail sheets?